It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. Good to be back after a week off. Lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Brian Twining will stop by to talk NASCAR a little later on, our usual Monday spot with him, as Denny Hamlin captures his second straight at Dover. There is WNBA All-Star Game talk to get to and has very little to do with the actual game itself. The NFL Players Association debacle, baseball, and a whole bunch more. But we start things out in golf because everybody's talking about Scottie Scheffler. And if that's happening, it means we're talking to this guy, Ryan Ballengee, who does a great job with Golf News Net. You can check him out there. And Ryan, I don't know. I've run out of superlatives when it comes to what Scottie Scheffler continues to do. And what's it now, like 17 wins in his last 70-something starts. He's one major away, the U.S. Open, from the career Grand Slam. And just a dominating performance, especially in this final round where he just kept his foot on the gas pedal and sort of runs away from the field. And even in the moment where you thought maybe a little doubt would creep in when he winds up with a double bogey, when he fails to get the ball out of one of those pop bunkers, he comes right back with a birdie, and he just rolled. It just seemed so... He made a game that's very difficult look so easy. And I know the conditions were ripe for scoring, but he made it look so much easier than everybody else.
Yeah, he was up 7 at one point, and I think that's when he kind of allowed himself for a second to indulge in that bunker on number 8. Well, what if I can get it out with him mid-ironing it to the green instead of doing the smart thing that he almost always does, and what he wound up doing the second time around, and just kind of pitching it out to the fairway and making do with what he had to. I find him fascinating for so many reasons, but that when he wins, he typically wins in a blowout. He doesn't really win a lot of close tournaments. I mean, all of his major wins are by 4 shots or more. I mean, they're not even close. And it seems like when he is in the position to win, he is way in the position to win. It's not he's a comeback kid. He is a front runner. He is an incredible front runner. And he doesn't allow himself to, as I said earlier, indulge in what could be. And Tiger used to step on players' throats. His mom used to tell him to do that. Step on the competition's throat. Scottie's not that way. He is perfectly happy to let you screw everything up and him just play his game that is so much better than yours that he knows he's going to win eventually. And he does win eventually by a lot. And now he's got 2 majors. This year he's got 4 for his career. As you mentioned, he's an open away from the career Grand Slam, which seems inevitable at this point. He is quickly rocketed up the conversation of the best golfers of all time. I think you probably put him in the top 15 best golfers of all time at this point. That happened very quickly, but he also did it very patiently.
Yeah, that's a great way to term it. It happened quickly, but he's done it with patience, and that is a fascinating way to sort of look at it. Give me a sense for, there's the Tiger comparisons that inevitably start to come in when you see this level of dominance over this stretch of time. What can you point to in trying to compare this to what we saw during the peak years of Tiger? Is there something you can point to that you can put side by side and say, okay, that's what makes it similar? Because it feels like in so many ways they really are completely different in terms of the way they go about it.
Yes and no. I mean, I will say, if you give a shout out to a website called Data Golf, they do some really great statistical analysis, specifically historical analysis. And they kind of have this tool that's the peak of a golfer's career. Compare their peak to another peak, and basically 1 and 2 of the shot link era, going back to 2003 when we captured this data. It's Tiger's best, and then it's Scottie's best. And that's it, and then there's a massive golf after that. And I think what makes them similar is what we talked about earlier. They let everyone else make mistakes. They know they're the best player. They know they've got the best talent, but they also know when and when not to be aggressive. Right? Tiger often talked about playing his way into tournaments, knowing when to play 2 certain pins, when to avoid certain pins, when par was good enough, when he needed to kind of step on the gas. Scheffler's really, really good about doing that. I think what makes them a little bit different is that Scheffler, for some reason, is freakishly good at recovering from mistakes. The double bogey happens on 8, immediately birdies the next hole, hits it to 7 feet. It's unbelievable how often he turns a bogey into a birdie on the next hole. At a 33% clip on the PGA Tour. When he won the PGA Championship, he did a 67.5% clip for the championship. The tournament average was 18%. It's insanely good how he is at taking something bad that happens, and it happens a lot in golf, and turning it into something good, or forgetting that something bad happened and doing something good the next available opportunity. That kind of makes it hard to beat, because as a competitor on the other end, you're thinking, well, the window is open. He's made a double bogey. That 7-shot lead's now 5. And then he birdies the next one, the lead's 6, and the whole thing's over. Yeah. The window is shut immediately. And it gets really frustrating as a player who's trying to compete with that, trying to think, how do I get to this guy? How do I stop him? How do I get past him when he's not going to let you get past him? And I think Tiger was insanely good at that, albeit in a slightly different way.
He had 3 or 4 ridiculous par saves, too, in this final round that could easily be overlooked, that if you didn't watch the entire round. He had 3 or 4 big par saves that contributed to him being able to sort of keep his foot on the gas pedal. Before we go, and I don't have enough time to get into the whole thing about the comments he made earlier in the week, where he really let us in in a way that he hasn't before. And I really appreciated a lot of what he said earlier in the week, talking about how fleeting victory is and how quickly it passes. In the final minute here, what are the other big takeaways from this tournament in terms of other guys?
I think Chris Gotterup has to be a shining beacon of the last 2 weeks. He won the Scottish Open. That got him into this tournament. He finished tied for 3rd. All of a sudden, he's a guy who's a 2-time PGA Tour winner and is just on the periphery of Ryder Cup contention, I think, at this point. He's a big, strong kid who can hit the ball a long way and kind of seems to have found some self-belief. I think that's great. Harris English having himself a nice week. Again, another runner-up finish in a major, very unassuming, but he's going to be on the Ryder Cup team as well. And I thought it was really cool how things finished up for Rory McIlroy. He didn't win, but he talked about it after the fact. He said he got everything he wanted out of this week other than the claret jug. And I think he knows, having won the career Grand Slam this year, but also knowing that Scottie is clearly the better player right now, that he's probably going to get 1 to 2 more cracks at an Open in front of his home crowd at Royal Portrush. He wanted to savor the flavor on Sunday, and I think he did.
Ryan Ballengee, great work as always. Golf News Net. Always appreciate you, my friend. Be well. We'll talk to you down the line.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Ryder Cup will be here before you know it. We're coming back. Lots more to do. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show, and great to have you all with us. Great to have this guy with us. Almost forgot what he looked like. I haven't seen him in so long. That's Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk some baseball, Sam. Talk about the weekend that was. Go through some of the top stories quickly. Boy, the Brewers are hot. They have won 10 in a row now as they continue to sort of roll through the NL Central. I mean, they have one of the best records in baseball right now. And this is a team that started out just abysmal at the beginning of the year. They were dealing with injuries. Remember that series against the Yankees where I think the Yankees 120 run differential all came in like the first 3 games of the year against the Brewers. So Milwaukee sweeps the Dodgers in LA. They are now tied with the Cubs atop the NL Central. Both teams playing, at a good clip. And you know what? There's what? A couple of certainties in life. Few certainties in life. Death, taxes, and the Brewers finding a way to be near the top of the division no matter what's on that roster.
It is truly incredible, Jason, what the Milwaukee Brewers have managed to do. And I know that there's a contingent of Major League Baseball fans out there that are talking about how, I know this team's got 59 wins, by the way, more than the ever-feared Los Angeles Dodgers, as we do this show on July 21st. Like, it's the end of July, and I'm saying that. It's not the middle of May. But I know there's a large contingent of baseball fans that are saying, this is a Brewers team that their xFIP is 10th in baseball and their xWOBA con is 30th.
That's you, though. That's you. You're stat boy. That's you.
Okay, but there's a degree where you have to respect ball. And I think that when we get into that world of stats, and, you know, to toot my own horn, I think the reason that I do it effectively is because there's a level of respecting ball that goes on when you look at statistics, right? And the fact of the matter is that even if they're winning games off of vibes, there is enough talent on that Milwaukee Brewers team to at least propel them to the playoffs, and I think pretty darn deep into the playoffs. I know people who are putting in Milwaukee Brewers World Series tickets right now. They're also putting in Toronto Blue Jays World Series tickets right now, so maybe we need to shift it back just a hair.
All right.
But it's great what the Brewers have done, Jason.
Yeah,
you truly cannot say enough good things about that organization from the top down.
And when they get to the postseason, they'll be tough because of that starting pitching that we've obviously chronicled and talked about so much throughout this season. The Diamondbacks, are they in sell mode or not? They are right on that cusp when you look at where they are in the wild card standings right now. What will they wind up doing? I take note of this because Eugenio Suarez hit his 35th home run of the year yesterday. He's third in all of baseball, if I'm not mistaken now, in home runs for the season. And I bring it up because Ricky Ricardo, who is the Yankees' Latin play-by-play voice, threw out some pretty good red meat there last night when he said that he had it on authority that the Yankees were offering up a 5-player package to the Diamondbacks to try and get Merrill Kelly, Eugenio Suarez, and I think one other player whose name is escaping me at the moment. So they're talking about potentially, and in that 5-player deal, you're not getting George Lombard, and you're not getting Spencer Jones. So I don't know how, if you're the Diamondbacks, by the way, you're doing that deal, if one of those two studs are not in there. By the way, Spencer Jones crushing it right now at AAA. So I ask you, Sam, if you're the Diamondbacks, are you in sell mode, or are you still just kind of waiting to see where the chips fall? Because I ask it for this reason. I also read somebody who covers the Diamondbacks, Barry Bloom, actually, who's a Hall of Fame voter, covers a lot of the baseball in the Southwest. And he said something very interesting. He said, you know, the Diamondbacks basically sold out every game this weekend. And they're taking a huge chunk of the money they're making this year and putting it into stadium upgrades at Chase Field. That isn't the sign of a team that's looking to sell away all their assets. Barry Bloom made the argument. Friend of the program, Barry Bloom, by the way. So, Sam, I ask again, now with all that information, are the Diamondbacks going to be in sell mode, and will Suarez be going to the Yankees?
Well, first of all, Jason, a moment for Eugenio Suarez. This is a guy who is, yes, third in all of baseball this season in homers, but let's expand that even further. You go back to last season's All-Star break. Since then, Judge has hit 59, Ohtani's hit 57, Eugenio Suarez has 55 home runs. It's about 163 game span. It's ridiculous numbers this guy is putting up. Obviously, you know why he's in this shadow. It's because he plays in Arizona and he plays in the same division as Shohei Ohtani, and he plays in Major League Baseball at the same time as Aaron Judge. Now, to the trade part of it, do I think that what was reported on the, again, key component of this story, Yankees broadcast network last night, was a realistic package for what would land what was allegedly sought after from the Diamondbacks? No shot. Do I think that that package could potentially land Eugenio Suarez? If you gave the Diamondbacks GM enough drinks before the conversation, maybe. I think that the Diamondbacks situation, obviously the reason we're talking about it right now, is because it's such a unique one in this era of baseball, right? You're in the same division as the 1920s New York Yankees, and oh, by the way, you've got two teams better than you in front of you behind them. But all the while, you're 2 years removed from being competitive. It's a head scratcher, Jason. I could see it going either way. if I'm sitting in that front office, I'm holding on to the assets because, again, you're not that far removed from seeing how competitive this team truly can be in October.
And look, I mean, Cam Schlittler is nothing to sneeze at. He's obviously one of the names being floated in this sort of alleged proposed deal that Ricky Ricardo threw out there. So, we'll have to obviously see where the chips fall. You like that? You like that? Yeah, thank you.
That was funny.
You're welcome. That's your little gift for the day. Freddie Freeman hurt.
This one hits Freeman.
Hit on the wrist, hand in that Brewers-Dodgers game. Say what you want about the Dodgers and the fact the Brewers have a better record. The Dodgers have just been decimated by injuries.
I'm having a hard time.
And this is another one.
How bad this is.
And they'll still find a way to win the division when all is said and done.
Oh, yeah. And probably the World Series.
Not ready to go that far yet. We're coming back. All right, let's take things to segment 3 on this Monday edition of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, the WNBA All-Star Game was a lot more than the game people were talking about. But can we at least try to agree on the facts of what we're actually arguing about when it comes to this better pay for players conversation? I want to get to that. Sam Yarnell, we had big news last week, so much so that even while we weren't doing a show, and I thought Sam would be so tired of me I wouldn't hear from him all week, Sam still found a way to get in touch with me during the time off that we had to talk about the fact that the NFL Players Association is in a whole bunch of upheaval right now, with J.C. Tretter being the latest to resign, the NFLPA's chief strategy officer. This after the resignation of Lloyd Howell last Thursday night, after a whole host of issues came up, not to mention a trip to a very expensive strip club that we discussed last over the weekend on the weekend edition of SportsWrap with our friend Robert Littal. So Sam Yarnell, we see a whole bunch of turmoil in what is widely regarded, and I think Robert brought this up on the weekend show, and I think it's accurate to say, one of the worst and weakest players associations of all, the NFLPA. And now you've got what's happened with Lloyd Howell. Now you have J.C. Tretter, who's taken his name out of consideration to be the executive director of the NFLPA. And who knows where this thing goes next and who the next executive director of the NFLPA is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a story and a conflict that is riddled with controversy and collusion. It's a really, really bad look for like one of, if not one of, the most powerful union in sports. Players union, because obviously the umpires unions, we talk about those to no end. This is kind of dangerous for football, and I don't say that often. Like, I didn't even say that with the whole concussion thing when it relapsed like 5 years ago. This is dangerous for football because it's internal, and that's like the only way that the NFL can get hurt. It is an all-powerful body that seems to deflect any bullet that comes at it from any which direction. But now it's got an internal problem. And now you've got a problem between the union of players and the owners. And within that problem, you've got another problem within the union of players between this shady management committee that all of these pieces of news are coming out now about how uninformed the players were about the actual doings of this management committee. I think that we are in for serious reform with regard to how the Players Association operates.
You would think
internally. This is problematic for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, the whole controversy around J.C. Tretter right now has to do with the running backs and him allegedly telling people on friend of the program Ross Tucker's podcast, admitting to telling players potentially to fake injuries to essentially protect themselves in future contracts. That is one of the more questionable things that you'll hear with regard to the Players Association and intra-personnel communications. I don't know, Jason. I don't know what the reform is, but there's got to be something serious if they want the general public to trust the players and the players to trust the management committee, and then the Players Association and the owners to trust each other again and not collude like they did on those quarterback contracts from the late 2010s and early 2020s.
I'm curious, and Will Compton, by the way, former linebacker, put a post up on X on Sunday, said, quote, "Yeah, let's vote for the guy who was in charge of hiring Lloyd Howell. Let's vote for the guy who swept a lot of rhymes with hit, under the rug when NFL owners were colluding to not give out guaranteed contracts. The NFLPA is constantly outmatched, and it's truly our own doing. They would be wise to remove Tretter as well." Well, that obviously wound up happening. Actually, Ben Watson posted they'd be wise to remove Tretter as well. What I'm wondering is, as you've got training camps starting, you've got guys fighting to make rosters. You've got guys trying to make teams, solidifying positions. I wonder how much of the rank and file is actually plugged into this story. Like we are. I'm sure star players are. I'm sure former players and, guys like Nick Ferguson, friend of the show, who is a former rep with the NFLPA and works with the retired players and has been very plugged into this. I was just texting with him last night, and he says he's talking to retired players, he's talking to current players. Hoping to have him on the show tomorrow to really flush this out, as well as something that he has suggested for the next NFLPA head, which I find kind of funny. I am curious how many of the rank and file guys are plugged into this because of everything going on.
I bet you it's a lot of them, and here's why. We are in an era where, think about the biggest news stories besides this from actual inside of buildings from this past weekend, right? It was all these second round picks getting all this crazy amount of guaranteed money, right? And we've still got this massive story in Washington with Terry McLaurin holding out because he wants more money. And Garrett Wilson just got a bag, and the Jets just gave Sauce Gardner a bag. Everyone is always tied in with the Players Association because all of it, like even the crux of this issue, always comes back to the players getting or having money taken from them.
And that's a good point. And that could there could be something to that. I just wonder though, with the focus of trying to make a roster for a lot of these guys and the difference between being a practice squad guy or working at a Lowe's or a Home Depot versus actually being on an NFL roster, if a lot of those guys are focused on it or if it's just background noise for them right now. Like who from the player's side, I see it, seeing something from Will Compton or something from Ben Watson, who never met a camera in a news interview he didn't like. I'm wondering just how many of the players are focused on it. Because they should be. I agree with you, by the way. They should be. I just wonder how many of them are. It's going to be fascinating to watch over the next several weeks and who winds up stepping up to be the next executive director of the NFL Players Association. We are coming back. The WNBA All-Star Game making news, but not for the reasons you would think. That's next. All right. Coming up in 10 minutes, Brian Twining, our friend from Bleacher Nation, to break down NASCAR. Denny Hamlin, winning for the second straight year at Dover. Shocker, Shane Van Gisbergen finished 30th. Guess if it's not a road course, he doesn't do very well. Oh, we already knew that! Talk about that with Brian. Sam Yarnell, the WNBA All-Star Game was this weekend. And hey, man, the WNBA is getting closer to the NBA every day. They don't play defense in that game either, apparently. What was it, 150, 135, something like that?
Well, they designed the rules to have the rule changes were the reason the scoring was so high. The shot clock was like 15 seconds.
4-point play, the 4-point shot.
Yeah.
By the way, I like the 4-point shot. The WNBA wants to do something cool and different and differentiate itself from the NBA. I love the idea of the 4-point shot. Let's do it. If they did it in the NBA, they'd be jacking up like 70 of them a game. We can't do it in the NBA. If anything, we need to disincentivize the 3-point shot. But in the WNBA, I am all about it, man. Let's see him just jacking them up from a circle somewhere. I love it. The players made news for different reasons, Sam Yarnell. Before the game, coming out during warm-ups with a T-shirt that says, "Pay us what you owe us." And this has caused all sorts. And look, it got the desired effect. It definitely started a conversation or reignited a conversation, which was the desired effect when it comes to this latest collective bargaining agreement that the WNBA is trying to get done, that players and owners are trying to come together on. Here's my quarrel with this whole thing. It's not with the players wearing these T-shirts, because they should get paid. They should get paid in this next deal. My problem with this conversation is we can't even agree on what the parameters for the conversation are. Okay? We're talking about a league that last year, I think they said, lost $40 million. There's a key word here, though, Sam Yarnell. Those key words are last year lost $40 million. We're talking about a collective bargaining agreement that expires in 2026. Now, in the meantime, there's been a whole new TV deal that's something like $2 billion. A media rights deal for $2 billion. There's going to be enough money. And if there isn't, somebody is seriously mismanaging the pool that this money has gone into. There's going to be enough money to pay players more than what they are making now. I don't care what's happened the first 30 years of this league. It's about looking forward at the next collective bargaining agreement for these players, and they should be able to make the argument that with the pool of money getting so much bigger because of these media rights, expansion, which means more money coming in as well, that they should get paid more. If we can't at least agree on that, then what the hell are we talking about?
Well, Jason, there's so many more things than that they seemingly can't even agree on, and I'll get to the whole business side of it in a second, because there's a ton of merit there, 100%. There's a lot of merit to the argument. The argument gains copious amounts of faults when directly after you take action to defend your argument, your immediate take in the press is, "Ha! Did you see the other team? They weren't doing that. I don't want to tattletale, but did you see the other team? They weren't doing that." One of many reasons that Kelsey Plum is quickly becoming one of the least liked and probably my least favorite athlete in the WNBA, a league that has Angel Reese in it. But okay, so that's if we're going to be constructive and be good for the league, we can't do things like that. Let's not tear other members of the league down who, quite frankly, are also contributing as much, if not probably more than you, Kelsey Plum, to that rising tide that is lifting all ships, including yours. Anyway, I digress to the business part of this. As weird as it is, and as uncomfortable as it is to say this, it is true. I thought Dave Portnoy had one of the better takes on the business of the WNBA. I know, sounds wild. I made the same face when I thought it to myself, Jason.
Oh boy.
But what he pointed out is, under this umbrella that the NBA or that the WNBA falls under within the NBA, it's given the NBA the power to hide a lot of their financial downfalls in some of their other outlets, the WNBA being one of which has become the largest. And now Obviously, it's become a spectacle that is making money. The players deserve nothing more than to make in my mind, non-business person's mind, in my defense, the amount that they have lifted the, viewership or popularity of the league, that's how much the salary cap should increase. It only feels sensible percentage-wise. There's definitely an equation that you could figure out that would bring you to the right number.
I agree. But the problem for me is I see people making this argument about the money lost in the past. And if we can't agree that this isn't about the past and it's about the future and where the league is going and projections, like anything else, I'm literally in the middle of doing this myself, in evaluating our own company that runs this show. I'm literally in the midst of doing this. And it's not about where you are now. It's about projecting where you're going to be. And players deserve to be paid based on that, Sam. One other thing. If you're going to go on TV, carry champion. If you're going to go on CNN on a morning show and say the players in the WNBA deserve more money, at least get your facts right. I watched her go on TV today and say the WNBA is adding 8 teams by 2030. 8 teams. So they're going to almost double the size of their league in 6 years. They're adding 3! Do your homework! Ugh! Welcome back to the show. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. But first, it's a Monday, which means we're talking NASCAR. Bringing on our friend Brian Twining. Does a great job on all things NASCAR for Bleacher Nation. Says he's getting ready for fantasy football season. He loves fantasy football. He can't wait to stare at computer screens for hours on end and look at fantasy football statistics. In fact, I should give everybody his email address, and then you could just all send him your fantasy football questions, and he'll just sit there and answer all of them. Right, Brian?
Yeah, sure. In the free time when I'm not actually still focusing on handicapping NASCAR races, yes.
I know, and it's going to take away from your ability to handicap NASCAR races. So let's talk about this. Denny Hamlin, who had Denny Hamlin winning 4 races at the start of the season? And we still have more season left, Brian. Who had Denny Hamlin winning 4 races at the start of the season?
Definitely not this guy. I am one of those people that actually played his season total under 3.5, thinking that what we saw at the end of last year, where he struggled to get into victory lane, was going to carry over into this year. But clearly, he's in the twilight of his career in this FU mode, especially with the whole situation going on with NASCAR. He seems more determined than ever to find victory lane.
And 44 years old, as you mentioned, in the twilight of his career, and everything that is going on, within the courts and charters and all of this stuff that most people aren't, probably talking about as much. He wins this race in overtime. What stood out to you most from this win for Hamlin?
I think this was one of the shining moments of Denny's later part of his career, and it just exemplified his want to win, which is more so than I guess the rest of the field. I mean, on 30, 40 lap older tires at a track where we kind of expected the tires to come into play with Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, 2 of the fastest cars recently, breathing down his neck, and he was still able to hold them off despite multiple restart attempts. It just shows you how good he is at Dover now, despite him not being good here earlier in his career. I mean, they highlighted that on the broadcast. This was a place that he struggled at, and he's become probably the best at this track. And with the tires coming into play, it was just amazing to see him be able to hold those guys off.
Yeah, and kind of a messy finish, obviously, with the wrecks late, and obviously the overtime that takes place as well, and sort of how that played into all of this.
Yeah, and let me say, this was the perfect race for myself. I took the week off from the betting window because we had the new tire, and then it made it even better that I was taking a bye week, that we didn't get practice or qualifying. So there was a lot of unknowns coming into the race. That said, I think one of the bigger takeaways was definitely Chase Elliott. Yes, it was a lot of it had to do with track position and clean air, but he finally showed speed that I think was equivalent to race winning speed, something that hasn't been there for the 9 team this year. So I do think that he's somebody to kind of keep an eye on as we transition into the latter part of the season and into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, he led for 238 laps in this race and comes away with a whole bunch of points, as does Bubba Wallace, who comes away with some much-needed points here as well, Brian.
Yeah, and, you know, both of those guys, like Chase Elliott jumped teammate William Byron for the regular season points lead, which is huge when it comes into playoff standings. And then Bubba, as you said, he got some more separation on Ryan Preece, just Wallace coming home 7th, a result that was definitely not on my card for him. The fact that he was able to be there at the end was kind of surprising for myself, but it's great at a track that he's not traditionally really good at to be able to do that.
How do you feel now about Bubba's chances to make the playoffs? Do we still think he needs a win?
No, I kind of said this a few weeks ago that I didn't see very many new winners occurring, especially with the tracks that we're going to. I mean, we go to Indy this week. Kyle Larson is probably going to be the humongous favorite and stomp the field again. So, I mean, that's just another opportunity for him to just gain points and not have to worry about a new winner. So I think Bubba's in a pretty good spot here. And with NASCAR changing the rules this morning, I don't think there's no worries about them missing races for the rest of the regular season either and not accumulating points. So I think Bubba's in a good spot as long as they can just hold the course and try to maximize points each week.
How do you feel about the idea of Hamlin, you know, and I haven't seen any odds on it for him to win the entire championship at the end of the year. How do you feel right now about him in that position?
So Denny is not the greatest at Phoenix, which is obviously it's a championship race. And until we see him kind of be really good at that track, it's hard to peg him as the favorite. He's still behind guys like Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, even Chase Elliott. And then of course the Penske guys, like if Joey Logano somehow gets to Phoenix with a chance to win the championship, he's going to be amongst the shortest odds to win there too.
You mentioned Kyle Larson, and obviously some of what he did. Who was the biggest loser coming out of this weekend? Who took the biggest hit?
That's probably going to be a guy like Chris Buescher, who he really didn't perform great. You know, it was difficult with them not getting practice or qualifying at a track that he's not the best. He's also not very good at. And so I don't think he was able to maximize the potential that RFK has shown.
Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think, look, Kyle Busch he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't really consider him somebody a threat in the playoffs or anything of that nature.
Yeah, to make the playoffs. Well, we've got more racing to talk about next week, and you'll be here to do it. Brian Twining hangs out with us. Does a great job on NASCAR with Bleacher Nation. Also with fantasy football. Thank you, Brian. We'll see you later.
All right.
Welcome back to the show. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Good to be back after most of last week off. Had to gear up for football season. Had to recharge the battery a little bit. All right, couple of reminders before we go. One, if you have not subscribed to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, make sure to do so. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, a whole bunch more. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can get the audio version of this show Monday through Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. That's one. Two, if you love watching the show, but maybe you can't catch it on your favorite affiliate where you're watching us, sometimes we get preempted, don't worry. You can watch us every day on Spotify or on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Go over there, subscribe. It's free. The show is there every afternoon for you in its entirety, commercial free. You heard me right. You get to watch the show without the commercials. Monday through Friday, go and check that out over on YouTube. We also have SportsWrap Shorts there, which will resume today. I unplugged last week, man. I didn't do anything. I was barely on social media. You barely saw me online ripping anybody. I was pulling back. Had to take the week off. Had to recharge the battery a little bit. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Donald Trump in the news for sports this weekend because got to change the subject. And we all know what that subject is. The president, the commander-in-chief, if you will, apparently worried about the names of a couple of certain franchises. He wants the Cleveland Guardians to change their name back to the Cleveland Indians, and he wants the Washington Commanders to change their name back to the Washington Redskins. Now, as somebody who is from the belly of the beast in the DMV, and knows a lot about that the history of that franchise, and certainly appreciates where that franchise was as the Redskins, then as the Washington football team, now as the Commanders. I wonder how you would feel about the team reverting back to the name Redskins.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about the president saying what he said.
Careful.
I would just like to
We don't want to wind up like Stephen Colbert.
I'll take you back to the year, 2016, I believe it was, when then President Obama instructed the trademark office to remove the trademark on the then Redskins logo, and that became a very controversial thing in conservative circles, where our now president, then Mr. Donald Trump, said that it was horrible for the president to involve himself in what a professional sports team is named. That is no place for the president to use his power. So I would just like to remind him of those fateful words from 9 years ago.
There's always a tweet for it. When it comes to Trump, there's always a tweet for it, though. We all know that.
I know. And people went back and found it. So I do. I think that is important for him to remember. If nothing else, his own advice. I listen, from a naming convention standpoint, I think that a lot of that fan base would agree with me when I would say that they would take a replica of last season over a name change 6 ways to Sunday, and then probably twice on Sunday.
They're not going.
I don't
back.
really think. I think that in the 50 states around the district, it matters a lot more than it actually does in the district.
Interesting.
To me, people were fine when it was the football. I mean, the football team was kind of laughable, but it was more excitement for the new era and that kind of thing. And Commanders has been great, and it's got a great short history. Like, why are we getting rid of that?
Yeah, and look, I think it all also plays into the Daniel Snyder years and the switch and the move away from Daniel Snyder as the owner of the team. I think that also plays a role in all of this as well. The president has threatened to make it difficult for the team to get into their new stadium. It's not really sure how he would be able to do that, but hey, we'll keep tabs on it anyway. Will Levis, done for the year before it ever started. We never even got to know you. Will Levis, done for the season. He'll have to undergo season-ending shoulder surgery, who has a AC joint injury that apparently took place last year. And now they're just having surgery on July 29th. Why did it take so long? I have no idea.
Well, it took so long because he was competing with Cam Ward in camp, but I wanted to read you this statement from the Titans that they put out.
Sure.
After consulting with doctors and his representatives, Will Levis has decided to undergo shoulder surgery that will sideline him for the entire 2025 season. We support his decision to focus on his long-term health. He approached the offseason with professionalism and showed clear growth as a leader. We remain confident in his full recovery. It's a weird statement.
It's a weird
It's a weird second to last sentence.
Yeah,
it feels like it was written by an agent, and it doesn't feel like good times lie ahead for Will Levis in Tennessee. Cam Ward's season is officially upon us.
Yes, it is. And we're all looking forward to it. Football season is here. We'll be covering it. Training camp's getting underway. All sorts of fun on that front. It's going to do it for us on this Monday edition of the show. I almost forgot what day it was already. We just started. I don't know how that happens. We got to go. Thanks to Brian Twining. Thanks to Ryan Ballengee. Thanks to you for watching. Sam as well, for all of his contributions. We'll see you back here on Tuesday for more Sports Wrap. Bye.